Have you ever wondered how to get the very best deals in real estate? I'm Aaron Impens, and today I'm going to go over some secrets to negotiating with sellers. What's up, guys? Aaron Impens again. Let's talk negotiations. Everything in life is negotiations, and I mean everything. It could be real estate related when you're going in there trying to negotiate on a single family home, maybe even a big multifamily apartment complex, or even something as simple as trying to convince your kids they need to wear a coat when it's cold outside. Well, let me tell you, I don't have any advice for you on how to get your kids to wear a coat, so let's talk about some real estate. All right, so negotiations happen all throughout real estate. But today we're just going to talk about one scenario, when you're purchasing a property. Okay, so when you're purchasing a property, that's going to go one of two ways. You're either going to buy it with a real estate agent where you're represented by a real estate agent and so is the seller, or you're going to be speaking directly to the seller, between the seller and yourself. Okay, so first off, let's talk about with the real estate agent. So how does that process look? Well, when you're buying something that's on the market or on the MLS that a real estate agent has listed, you're likely going to have an agent representing you as the buyer, and then the person selling the property will have an agent representing them, obviously as the seller. So the negotiations are a little bit less emotional. Okay, so the way that that's going to go down is you're going to find a property that you like. You're going to end up calling your agent, going over the details with them, saying, hey, here's what I want to pay, here's the terms, here's when I want to close, here's who I want to close with, so on and so forth. You're going to discuss all those things with your agent, your buyer's agent. They're going to write that up into an offer, send that over to the seller's agent. The seller's agent will review that, then they're going to end up talking to the seller, the owner of the property, going over those details with them. And they'll end up deciding whether or not they like that offer or what they want to counter back. Assuming they want to counter back, they're going to talk to their agent and say, hey, here's what I didn't like. Let's offer. They're too low on their price. Let's maybe meet in the middle. They'll tell their agent that. They'll come back to your buyer's agent, or will come back to you, and so on and so forth. This process will go back and forth, however many times it takes to either get the deal put together or for the deal to just go by the wayside. So assuming the deal gets put together, the agents are going to be the ones that handle that. Okay, they're going to be the ones that put the contracts together. If you're the offerer, your agent's going to write up all the terms, make sure they're the way that you wanted it, and then ultimately the seller's agent's going to make sure that those terms are what everybody's agreed upon. They'll facilitate all of the signings and then also facilitate getting the contract over to the title company, so on and so forth, to complete the process. Very not emotional. Other people are handling the details of it for you, which can be of value, but it's just one way. It's just one process. So let's talk about dealing directly with the seller. This is going to be a little bit different. This is going to have a little bit more emotion involved to it because you're going to be speaking directly to the seller. You know, there's nobody in between helping facilitate things. The first thing I want to make sure that you understand when you're dealing direct with a seller is you want to be upfront and honest. Okay, don't lead these people on. Don't tell them one thing if you don't have any intentions on doing it. Be very upfront and honest. You got to remember that they're not going to have the experience of selling homes like say maybe you have or maybe you will have. Maybe they've sold one or two houses in their entire life. They're going to want to trust what you're saying and make sure that what you tell them you're going to follow through with. You don't want them to think, yes, I got my house sold, and then 30 days later you're like, meh, sorry, and you back out. That is not what you want to do. So be upfront, be honest. If you're out wholesaling, tell them. Make sure that you share with them, hey, I work with a field of investors or a network of investors, and I'm going to share this with them. And if one of them doesn't want to buy it, unfortunately, this isn't going to work out, but likely they will. Tell them up front. Make sure they know. Make sure they understand. That's what I want to encourage you to do first and foremost. Okay, so you've been upfront, you've been honest with these people. As you're speaking to them, building rapport with the sellers is going to be very important. Okay, they're going to want to learn about you just as much as you're going to want to learn about them. So let's say you've made it to the point where you're now at their house. Okay, you're walking through their property. They have an interest in selling. Why? Why do they want to sell you the house? This is the important point right here. What you need to find out is what is their motivation. Okay, what is the motivation? Now, what does that mean? What's the motivation? Yeah, obviously people are selling properties to make money, but maybe there's an underlying motivation of really why they want to sell. Maybe they need to sell quickly. Maybe they don't want to deal with any of the repairs. Maybe they're being forced to move because they're in the Army or something like that. Find out what the motivation is. Maybe they're back on their payments and they need to get caught up before they go into foreclosure. The way to do that is by building rapport, asking questions. You are there to listen, okay? You don't need to show up and tell them about how good you're going to be at closing quickly or how good you're going to be at making this house look pretty again or so on and so forth. If they're emotionally wrapped up in their property and they think that their house is already pretty as it is, you telling them that you're going to make it look so much better may end up just turning them off. So ask questions, find out what their motivation is, find out if they have some pain points. And then once you've figured out what that motivation is, offer some solutions. Okay? If you can solve their problem or help offer some solutions to their problem, that's when it's going to become a win-win for everybody. That's when the negotiations start to go a little bit better. Now, previously I talked about emotions involved when you're dealing with real estate agents and how there isn't many. In this case, there can be. You know, you're dealing directly with the seller. They're probably emotionally wrapped up in this property. Maybe they've owned it for 30 plus years. It's been their home their entire lives. Ask them and listen, okay? Make sure you're dealing with emotions. Make sure you're taking care of their needs as well. All right, let me tell you a little story about a property that I bought. They were sellers that were retiring and wanting to move to Phoenix. Okay, the property that they had owned that I was buying is in Nebraska, and like I said, they're moving to Phoenix. One of their concerns after walking through the property with them, being honest with them, listening to what they had to say, was they wanted to make sure that their property was sold in Nebraska. And I thought, well, why do they want to do that? And ultimately, they needed to make sure their property was sold so they could offer and buy the property in Phoenix, or a property in Phoenix. They didn't have one picked out. Okay, so that's the first piece of motivation. Log that in. It's like they need to make sure, they want to feel confident that I'm going to come through and that their property is going to be sold. It's perfect. Now, again, after talking to them more and more, you hear that, well, they don't have the property picked out in Phoenix yet. So not only do they want to make sure their property is sold, but since they don't have one picked out in Phoenix, they don't know when they want to close. They don't know when they want to sell, because ultimately they want to move out of their house in Nebraska and move to Phoenix all in the same time. Okay, so I've now listened to their story, listened to what they had to say, and they've told me they need to make sure the property is sold, but they also want flexibility on closing time. Well, guess what? I can offer both of those things for them. So what we ended up agreeing upon was a purchase of their property at a certain price, and what I allowed them to do was end up with a flexible closing time so they could go to Phoenix and end up looking for a property and making an offer. They felt comfortable and they knew that they were going to be able to do that confidently down in Phoenix because their property was sold in Nebraska. So in the end, they ended up going down to Phoenix, finding the property that they wanted. They ended up finding it pretty quickly, so it ended up working out okay. Them being able and them knowing that they had the property sold was key for them, okay? We ended up creating a win-win for everybody involved. I got a better price, they got the confidence knowing their property was sold, and the ability to then go find their next property. So we've recapped that a little bit, or we've talked about dealing directly with the sellers, working through agents. One of the main keys is when dealing direct with the sellers, find their motivation, be honest, and listen. I promise you it'll help create a win-win, which will get you some of the best deals you will find. I hope this helps, guys. I got more to share with you. I encourage you to tune back in, smash the subscribe button, give me some likes, And you know what? Leave some feedback. Tell me what you want to hear as well, or tell me what you liked about the video. We'll see you guys next time. All right, guys. I'm Aaron Impins. I hope this helps. A little bit of tips on negotiating with sellers. I hope you liked it. If you want some more, make sure you tune back in, smash that subscribe button, and give me some likes. And you know what? Maybe leave some tips or some questions about negotiating with sellers that maybe you have. I'd love to be able to help. See you guys next time.